Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. It's Dr. Dime, and today we're doing a good old fashioned sit down. No vlogging, no aesthetic, no montage, no nothing. We're just talking. Just me, a chair, my Christmas tree that's not fully decorated, so don't come for it. So, I'm going to talk to you about a day in the life of a resident and what that really looks like. Because honestly, a lot of the day in the life videos, they cute or whatever, but they're not the whole picture of what you can expect once you get here. And I do love those videos, and I even have one probably up on my channel right now. But I also wanted to give you a different perspective of how different rotations look in residency. So if you are a pre-med or if you're in medical school, high school, whatever the case may be, let's get into it. Because I know you want to know. Because I would want to know. So without further ado, let's get this intro out the way so I can get into the good stuff. Hit it! Take me home! Take me home! Let's start the day with the morning because it always sets the tone for everything. Now, I am an early bird. Depending on a rotation, that determines what time I need to be inside of the hospital. For example, when I was on my ICU rotation, I had to get to the hospital earlier because rounds started earlier. So rounds typically started at around 8 o'clock, 8:30. So I had to be in the hospital before that so I could see all of my patients before it was time to formally go around and see patients. That's why they call it rounds. But before it was time to go around with the attending and see our patients that were on a list. So oftentimes I would be up at 5 or maybe even 4:30 just to pre-chart, which is where you go over all of the patients on the census, determine what their labs are for the day, what their vitals are for the day, and any important updates that have happened since you last saw the patient. As a resident, we often do this before the attendings get there because you would want to be prepared. It's basically your job to update the team on your patients and also to come up and formulate a plan for the rest of the day as to how you're going to keep that patient stable. So in order to do that, you need all of the information presented to you and you need to have it organized and you need to be prepared. Therefore, that's why I was up at 4:30 because ICU patients are a lot. And what I mean by that is they have a lot of problems. And so you have to go systems based and figure out the resolution to those problems because after all, you are the doctor. But I'm rambling. So basically, on a rotation like that, I'd get up super early and then I would pre-chart on my patients. I log into the electronic medical record and I look at everything that I just said. I'm looking at the labs, I'm looking at the vitals, I'm looking at notes from nurses or notes from other specialties to see, did that patient have that procedure performed? How are they doing now? Are they on oxygen? Are they off of oxygen? Are they requiring pressure support for their blood pressure? Is their blood pressure stable? These are all important things that you have to know prior to rounding with the rest of the team. So usually I check those things and then I go into the hospital. And by the time I get there, I've already seen most of what I need to know based on the labs of the patient. But now I actually have to see the patients who, they're right in front of me, right? So I always like to try to get there early enough where I can actually have time to go physically see them because that's also a part of patient care. So I try to make sure that I have breakfast in the morning because I've noticed that when I don't have breakfast, I tend to have a worse day. I know that sounds cliche, but for me, if I'm hungry, I can't think about nothing else but eating. So if I'm hungry and I'm on rounds, I don't want to be thinking about grits and turkey bacon. It's not the time. So I found that in order to give the best version of myself, I have to also. Oh, I hope y'all don't hear that stuff in the. Hope y'all don't hear that stuff that's in the background because they're all of a sudden doing construction work. We never have construction work done here, but since I'm recording the video, of course we have construction work being done on a Sunday. Weird. It's funny, not funny, haha. Funny, weird. But anyway, I'm gonna put this mic closer so that way you can hear me a little better, hopefully. But back to what I was saying. So I found that when I don't have breakfast, when I don't eat, I just can't focus as well. I tried to do that for my first like week of ICU rotation and it didn't work out well. I just found myself being hungry, waiting for lunch, and oftentimes only eating like once that day. And I'm just like, this is not a good way to sustain myself. This is not a good habit to form. So I quickly got out of it. Quickly. So before I go, I try to make sure I put a little effort into my physical appearance. Because again, it's about showing up for myself and then being able to show up for others. Now, I'm not saying that I get full glam every day. I don't even, this is probably the most that I do right now, and I barely have on any type of makeup. But I've also found that whenever I do my hair, I put on a little bit of lip gloss, I put on a little bit of, I tame these eyebrows, you know, I feel more presentable and I feel just more like myself. And so those are two things that I tried to build a habit of very early. And I'm still tweaking those things, but those help me to just get in the mood of going to work for that day. I know I'm about to go to work. I know I'm about to see patients. It's just a part of my morning routine. So once I'm on my way to work, the mental prep begins. I'm not talking about the motivational speaker kind of mental prep. It's more so, okay, what rotation am I on? Do I have clinic? What am I going to have to do today? What kind of vibes do I need to have? Did I remember to bring my badge? Or am I going to be embarrassed standing at the employee door? These are all things that you need to know. So I usually make sure I have everything. I do like a quick checklist. I always make sure I have my badge in my bag. I make sure that I have like, you know, personal items. Things like that that can just help my day go smoother because again, I feel like mornings really do set the tone for the day. So I try to do everything in my power to make sure that I'm going to have like a decent morning. Sometimes things are out of your control and I know you just can't control that, right? That's why it's out of your control. But the things that I can control, I try to control. Once you're inside of the hospital, that vibe just clocks in immediately. You smell the aroma of the hospital, the lights. It's just a completely different feeling from being out like in the general public. And so I think that once I'm there, I do start to feel a little different. And this is also helpful because, again, it helps put me in that mental mind space of knowing that, hey, it's a good day. We're about to go help people out and save lives. So, here's what my workday actually looks like. I always wondered if the hospital scene was like Grey's Anatomy. I always wondered that growing up because the things in Grey's Anatomy, we just gonna leave that there. But in reality, I'm sorry to say it, residency is not like Grey's Anatomy. Nobody is dramatically yelling, scalpel, scalpel, while you're running down the hallways in slow motion. Nobody is cutting LVADs. Nobody is being told to you're on labs, you're on vitals. No, that's too easy. Residency is more like I cannot believe they're doing all this construction in the back. I hope y'all can hear me. Residency is more like you're seeing patients back to back. You're writing notes. You're following up on labs. You're following up on tests. And you're seeing like new admissions that come into the hospital. So anybody new, you have to go down to the ER, see them, write a note on them, and do the same thing for them as the other patients, like follow up on their labs, follow up on studies, etc. You're often getting pulled into like a million different things, right? Because patient care comes first. So if you were finishing your note, but then a patient has an emergency that you need to attend to, which one do you think? Which one do you think you're gonna do? You're gonna go see the patient. It's also reminding yourself to like eat, take care of yourself. Now I make sure I eat lunch every day. That's one thing I have to do. Because again, for me, if I don't eat, I'm not able to really care for it. Now, I can definitely push my lunch, right? Like if something is more pressing, of course, I'm going to push my lunch. Like if a patient needs me, of course. But that's not like an everyday thing. I think sometimes people forget to eat or to take care of themselves because you're so busy. So I have to mentally like remind myself, take care of yourself, girl. Take care of yourself. So then after you do all these things, suddenly it's like 4 p.m. You get another admission, you're doing all the things, and time goes slowly some days, time goes very quickly some days, and before you know it, it's time for sign out. I'm gonna go through a few topics now and tell you a bit about each of them. So, patient care, let's start there because I feel like I've talked about that a couple times already in these few minutes. You're seeing people with everything from chronic conditions to the flu. You're listening, you're problem solving, you're having to think quickly, you're reassuring, and you're getting people connected to the other people, other specialties that they may need to be connected to. Charting. The real boss of residency is the chart. You thought you were done? The chart says absolutely not. Absolutely not. Charting is something that I wish that they went over more in medical school, but I think there's just not honestly enough time to do that. And it is one of those things that the more you do, the more you learn. And so you also have to get efficient with charting, which I'm still working on because I am an intern after all. Learning on the fly. You could walk in thinking that you know what the day's gonna bring, and then the day could go a totally different way. And so you have to think on the fly. You have to constantly be reading, constantly up to dating things and making sure that you're following guidelines. A lot of learning happens. A lot of learning happens. And the most learning happens when you're on rounds. So I kind of alluded to where rounds are earlier, but they're essentially where you go around, you talk about each patient that's on the census, you talk about everything that I mentioned earlier, as well as your plan. And the plan is what's really one of the most important parts because it's the time when you have a chance to be an independent thinker and to express what you would like to do with the patient. Oftentimes, if you're off, you're attending, who is basically like the manager physician. They've already completed residency and they're just here to like help you learn now. But they'll help redirect you if you're off or if you're wrong, or they might say, "Oh, good job," or they might ask you questions, or and it's not in a bad way typically. Um, it's just to help you learn, which I personally do enjoy because I learn a lot from questions, and especially if I get the question wrong, I feel like I usually don't get it wrong again because who likes to be wrong? Like you don't want to keep being wrong. So usually if I get a question wrong, I'll go back and like look it up and just teach myself. And I always remind myself that this is a learning experience. So, yes, I'm a doctor, but I'm also still a doctor in training. And so now is the time to ask questions, to you know, get questions wrong if I need to, because that's how you learn. Nevertheless, residency is also consistent of little just things everywhere. Your patient could be totally fine one moment and then the next moment they crash. And then next you're in a cold. You're in a cold blue or you have to always be prepared that at any moment something could happen. And so that's why it's really important to just be aware and be cognizant of that. But the good thing about it is there's usually always going to be a team of people that can help you. You're not often really left completely alone in residency, especially in your intern year. So it's not like you have to think about all these things by yourself or do all of these things by yourself. There's always people around that are going to help you if you ask for it or if you need it. If they sometimes you don't even really have to ask for it. Like if you're at a good program and somebody sees that you need help, they might just offer things. That's what it's all about. Like medicine is very, very collaborative, which is why it's important. I think they always ask like about teamwork and stuff on like your interviews or whatever. And that's because teamwork is so important if you're on a team of other providers. And then here's some real moments that could happen throughout the day that people don't really talk about as much, but I think that something that I have definitely appreciated throughout residency is like sometimes patients will give you the sweetest compliments. And of course, you're there to help the patient, but in a way, it winds up helping you because we all need a bit of encouragement. We all need that reassurance sometimes. And so when my patients tell me certain things, it makes me feel good about the profession that I've chosen to go into. And it reaffirms that I'm doing the right thing and that I am being a good doctor to them. And that means the world to me. Like my patients, their compliments means more to me than anything, than any evaluation or any compliment from like other doctors, honestly. while I appreciate those as well, those good compliments, it's just hearing the things I hear from my patients. Sometimes it really does fuel me, and it's really sweet. And once you get here, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. After you've had a long day, or after you've gotten a lot of questions wrong, or after you have been doing U World and like you got a 30%, which I've definitely been there before. Just hearing a kind word, it really does just make the day just so much better. So now at this point, we've went to work, we did our whole morning routine, we rounded on patients, we finished all of our notes, we're done with all of our admissions, and now it's time to sign out. So during sign out, that's when you sign out the patients that you have to the team that's coming on for the night. So you go through the list, you talk about anything that's pertinent, anything that's important, and you also tell the night person what they should be on the lookout for. For example, if you have a patient that initially came into the hospital because of chest pain, then something that you could say to the night person is, if the patient experiences chest pain, then order a stat, EKG, and troponin. A lot of those words might not make sense now, but they will later. But we usually use like if then statements to help tell people, if this, then do that. There are certain ways that people do handoffs and do sign out. And some of those ways is like iPass or S bar. A lot of things in medicine are really standardized just to keep everybody on the same page. And so depending on the program you go to, they'll have like their own way of doing handoffs, or and by handoffs I mean handing off the patient to the night team, which is the same thing as sign out. So after that, you're done for the day. So what do you do when you come home? Well, everybody's different, so everybody does different things. But when I come home, what I like to do is any notes I haven't finished from like clinic, all of my notes from inpatient from the hospital, I've already finished. They're done. Sometimes if I have like a half day of clinic and so I start clinic at 1 and I end at 5, then of course when I go home I have notes to finish because I just came from clinic. And so I like to get my notes out of the way. Usually I like to get my notes out of the way before I even take a shower. So I'll literally sit at my desk, finish my work. That way I can be done with work and then wind down. So afterwards, I usually take a shower. I will get on FaceTime, typically with my boyfriend, who's also in residency. And so we'll talk about like our day. We'll like study together on FaceTime. I try to study a little bit every day. And usually like the last hour and a half before it's time for me to go to bed, I don't do anything medicine related because I feel like it's very important for me to disconnect from that and leave it at today. That way I can start again fresh tomorrow. And somewhere in the midst of all that, I eat dinner. It just depends. Like sometimes I'll eat. I never eat while I'm doing work. I do not like to eat while I'm doing work. I like to keep the two separate. So I'll either eat, if I'm really really hungry, I'll eat before I finish my notes. If I'm not, I'll eat like after I take a shower or right before I take a shower. Just depends on how I'm feeling. Then what about the life balance part? This is something that I'm still trying to get better with, because even today, for example, I'm off, right? I spent half of my day lying in bed because I was tired. But the problem is that yesterday I was tired. I was out for 2 days this weekend. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Because that usually doesn't happen. But I was. And I'm still trying to find that balance between giving myself rest and also still doing things like a human being. So I forced myself to get out of bed at like 11:30 or so. I had already cleaned and everything, but I forced myself to get up and start making my YouTube videos. So sometimes it's also about just forcing yourself to do things. That way the day doesn't pass you by. Because once the day's gone, it's gone. Well, y'all, that pretty much wraps up the video, honestly, about what a day in the life of a resident is and what it's like and what you can expect. So I hope that that's helpful. If you are more of a visual person, you can definitely check out my video where I did do a vlog on the week in my life as a resident. So you can check that out as well. Or if you are more of a person that needed more of like structure, then I hope this is helpful too. But either way, wherever you are on your journey, good luck, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye. Take me home.